What drives me crazy is watching people try to invest before they have built the basic structure that makes investing work. They throw money into the stock market the way a gambler feeds coins into a slot machine, while credit card debt charging them 22% interest is sitting right there, quietly compounding against them. That is like trying to fill a bucket that has holes in the bottom and then wondering why the water never rises. This is the mistake most people make with money. They want the exciting part before the foundation. They want stocks before safety. They want cryptocurrency before an emergency fund. They want individual companies before they have removed high-interest debt. They want sophistication before they have order. But money has an order. If you do things in the wrong order, you can work hard, invest regularly, and still make very little progress because your system is leaking faster than it is compounding. That is why the first principle is not what to buy. The first principle is sequence. The order in which you allocate your next dollar matters enormously. A dollar used to pay off a 22% credit card balance is not the same as a dollar placed into an index fund. A dollar used to capture an employer match is not the same as a dollar placed into a taxable brokerage account. A dollar placed into an HSA may have a different long-term value than a dollar placed into an ordinary savings account. Most people do not think in those terms. They ask, what investment should I buy? The better question is, where does the next dollar do the most good? That is the whole framework. When you think this way, you stop acting randomly, you stop chasing whatever sounds exciting, you start building a financial house in the right order. You do not choose granite countertops before the foundation is poured. You do not choose light fixtures while the roof is leaking. Yet people do this every day with their money. They buy stocks while carrying toxic debt. They speculate while having no emergency fund. They contribute to taxable accounts while ignoring tax advantaged accounts. They leave employer matching money untouched. Then wonder why wealth building feels so slow. It is not slow because the system is impossible. It is slow because they are doing the steps out of order. The data tells us how fragile the average person is. Many Americans do not have an emergency fund at all. The median emergency savings level is extremely low, around a few $100s. That is less than many people's car payment. Less than one serious repair, less than one unexpected medical bill, less than the cost of a single disruption in a fragile life. And at the same time, some of these same people are asking whether they should buy individual stocks, options, or cryptocurrency. That is not investing. That is trying to build a skyscraper on mud. The first job is to create a base that keeps you from being forced into bad decisions. Before you invest a single dollar in anything risky, you need an emergency fund. I know this is boring. Boring is often what saves you. An emergency fund is not only money for unexpected expenses, it is a psychological shock absorber. It prevents a temporary problem from becoming a permanent financial injury. When your car breaks down, you do not have to sell investments at the wrong time. When you face a medical bill, you do not have to put it on a credit card. When your job becomes uncertain, you do not panic and liquidate long-term assets because you need cash this week. An emergency fund buys time. Time is one of the most valuable assets in finance. If you do not have time, you are forced to accept whatever terms life gives you. You sell when markets are down, you borrow when rates are high, you make decisions under stress, and decisions made under stress are usually expensive. That is why the emergency fund comes first. How much should it be? The common answer is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. That is useful, but too broad to be precise. Different people have different risks. A person with a stable government job, predictable income, low expenses, and strong benefits does not need the same emergency reserve as a freelancer in a volatile industry with irregular income and no safety net. So I would think in layers first. Get to $1,000 as fast as possible. That first $1,000 covers many small emergencies and begins to change your psychology. It tells your nervous system that every inconvenience is not a crisis. Then build to 1 month of living expenses. After that, build to 3 months. For some people, 3 months is enough. For others, 6 months or more may be more appropriate. The size depends on income stability, family responsibilities, health risk, job market risk, and how quickly you could replace income if something went wrong. The important thing is not to debate the perfect number forever. Start building. Recent research has shown that even a relatively modest emergency savings buffer can meaningfully improve financial well-being. That does not surprise me. Money is not only math, money is stress, choices, and behavior. A small buffer can prevent a person from making a large mistake. Once you have that first emergency buffer in place, the next step is to attack high-interest debt. This is where many people get the order dangerously wrong. If you have credit card debt charging more than 20% interest, investing in the stock market at the same time is usually irrational. The stock market may return 7, 8, 9, or 10% over long periods, but not reliably every year and not without volatility. A 22% credit card interest rate is a guaranteed negative return working against you every day. Paying it off is like earning a guaranteed return equal to the interest rate. That is powerful. If you owe $5,000 on a credit card at 22% and you only make minimum payments, you may pay thousands of dollars in interest over time. That interest does nothing for you. It is money transferred from your future to the lender because you allowed compounding to work against you. Compounding is neutral. It helps the person who owns productive assets, and it punishes the person who carries expensive liabilities. That is the principle. So when I say high-interest debt comes before investing, I am saying you must stop the guaranteed leak before building the uncertain engine. The threshold can vary depending on market conditions, but as a practical framework, debt above about 8% deserves serious attention. Credit cards are the obvious enemy. Some personal loans and car loans may also qualify. Payday loans and similar products are even worse. List every debt, write down the balance, write down the interest rate, write down the minimum payment, then pay the minimums on all debts and direct every extra dollar to the highest interest rate first. That is the debt avalanche method. Mathematically, it saves the most money because you are attacking the most expensive debt first. Some people prefer the debt snowball, where they pay off the smallest balance first because it creates psychological momentum. That can be useful for people who need motivation. But if you are thinking purely in terms of efficiency, the avalanche is superior. The point is not to be elegant. The point is to eliminate the liabilities that are compounding against you. But there is one major exception to the rule that high-interest debt comes before investing. The exception is your employer match. If your employer offers matching contributions to a retirement plan, you usually want to contribute enough to capture the full match, even while you are still paying down high-interest debt. That may sound inconsistent, but it is not. An employer match is often the highest guaranteed return available to ordinary workers. If your employer matches 50 cents on the dollar up to a certain percentage of your salary, or dollar for dollar up to a limit, that is free money tied to your contribution. It can represent an immediate 50% or 100% return before the investment itself does anything. You will not find many guaranteed returns like that anywhere else. Suppose you earn $50,000 a year and your employer matches 50% of contributions up to 6% of salary. If you contribute $3,000, the employer contributes $1,500. That is a 50% immediate return on your contribution. Even a 22% credit card is usually lower than the immediate value of that match. So the order becomes more nuanced. You build a starter emergency fund, you contribute just enough to get the full employer match, then you focus aggressively on high-interest debt. This is how you maximize guaranteed benefits while still stopping the debt leak. But pay attention to vesting schedules. Some employer matches are not fully yours immediately. You may need to stay at the company for a certain number of years to keep all of the matching money if you expect to leave soon. Understand the rules, even with vesting. The match is often valuable, but the details matter. This is the foundation. Emergency fund employer match, high-interest debt elimination. Without these, everything else is built on weak ground. Once those pieces are in place, the next phase is tax optimization. This is where people leave enormous amounts of money on the table because they rush into ordinary taxable investment accounts before using the tax advantage tools available to them. Taxes are one of the largest costs in investing. They are not always visible, but they are powerful. A dollar that can compound without annual taxation is more valuable than a dollar constantly reduced by taxes on dividends, interest, and realized capital gains. That is why the next step is often to maximize an individual retirement account. An IRA gives you more control than many employer plans. Many 401k plans have limited investment menus and sometimes expensive funds. Corporate retirement plans can be filled with mutual funds that charge fees that quietly reduce long-term returns. Fees matter because they compound too. A 1% fee does not sound large in 1 year, but over decades it can take a very large share of the wealth that should have gone to you. The fee does not look dramatic, it does not crash your account, it simply removes a little each year, and the loss compounding on that little amount becomes a large amount over time. With an IRA, you can often choose low-cost index funds and ETFs with very low expense ratios. That gives you more control over cost and diversification. For 2025, the IRA contribution limit is $7,000 or $8,000 if you are 50 or older. That catch-up contribution exists because time matters. If you are older, you have fewer years for compounding to work, so the system allows a larger contribution. But an IRA creates another decision, traditional or Roth. This is where people become confused because the question is simple, but the answer depends on uncertainty. Do you want to pay taxes now or later? A traditional IRA or traditional retirement account may allow you to deduct contributions today, reducing current taxable income. But you pay taxes later when you withdraw the money in retirement. A Roth account does the opposite. You contribute after-tax money now. But qualified withdrawals in retirement are tax-free. The decision depends on tax rates now versus tax rates later. If you are in a high tax bracket today and expect to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, traditional contributions may make sense. You save taxes now at the high rate and pay later at a lower rate. If you are in a low tax bracket today and expect to be in a higher tax bracket later, Roth contributions may be better. You pay tax now at a low rate and avoid tax later when the rate might be higher. The problem is that nobody knows future tax rates with certainty. You do not know future law. You do not know future income. You do not know future spending needs. You do not know how large your retirement accounts will become. You do not know what Congress will do. So for many people, tax diversification is valuable. Having both traditional and Roth money gives you options. In retirement, you can choose which accounts to draw from based on tax conditions. Options have value. Young workers often lean Roth because their current income may be lower than their future income. High earners in peak years may lean traditional because the current deduction is more valuable. But if you are uncertain, splitting contributions can be a reasonable way to avoid an all or nothing tax bet. After the IRA, the next powerful tool is the health savings account, if you are eligible. An HSA may be one of the most underused investment vehicles available. It has 3 tax advantages. You can get a tax deduction for contributions. The money can grow tax-free if invested. Withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are tax-free. That is rare. Most accounts give 1 or 2 tax advantages, and HSA can give all 3 if used properly. For 2025, the contribution limit is $4,300 for individual coverage or $8,550 for family coverage. But you must have a high deductible health plan to qualify, and that is not right for everyone. If you have significant medical expenses or need a different insurance structure, the HSA may not fit, but for people who are eligible, healthy, and able to invest the funds, the HSA can be extremely powerful. Here is the strategy that many people do not know. If you can afford to pay current medical expenses out of pocket, you can leave the HSA money invested. Keep your receipts. There's no time limit on when you can reimburse yourself for qualified medical expenses under current rules. You might pay a doctor bill today, keep the receipt, and reimburse yourself from the HSA many years later tax-free. That creates a powerful compounding vehicle. After age 65, the HSA becomes even more flexible. You can withdraw money for non-medical purposes, but those withdrawals are taxed like a traditional IRA. For medical expenses, withdrawals remain tax-free, and medical expenses in retirement are not hypothetical. They are very likely. Many retirees spend very large amounts on healthcare over their lifetime. A well-funded HSA can become a dedicated tax-free healthcare reserve. If you max out HSA contributions for decades and earn a reasonable market return, the account can grow into a major asset. The original source example described how decades of maximum contributions at a 7% return could create hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax-free money for medical expenses. That is why the HSA deserves a high place in the order. But again, eligibility and personal health circumstances matter. No account is powerful if it forces you into the wrong insurance structure for your life. After the HSA, you go back to the employer retirement plan and contribute beyond the match. The 401k or similar plan has much larger contribution limits than an IRA. For 2025, the employee contribution limit is $23,500 for most people, or $31,000 if you are 50 or older at this stage. You are sheltering a significant amount of income from current taxation or building a large Roth retirement base depending on the account type available to you. Between an IRA, HSA, and 401k, a disciplined saver can shelter a large amount of money each year. Most people never reach this point. That is important to understand. The average savings rate is low. Many people struggle to capture the employer match, let alone max out multiple tax-advantaged accounts. If you can work through this whole sequence, you are already behaving differently from the majority. That difference matters. Wealth is not usually built by doing one spectacular thing. It is built by doing the right boring things in the right order for a long period of time. This is where compounding becomes powerful. Your emergency fund prevents derailment, your debt payoff stops negative compounding, your employer match gives an immediate return, your IRA gives control and tax advantages, your HSA gives triple tax benefits if used properly. Your 401k allows large tax advantage contributions. Each piece strengthens the next. That is what I mean by a system. Now, after all of that, we finally get to taxable investment accounts. This is the part many people want to start with. Taxable accounts are flexible. You can buy individual stocks, index funds, ETFs, bonds, options, and many other assets. There are no contribution limits. There are no retirement withdrawal rules. You can use the money for early retirement, a house down payment, business capital, education, or any other purpose. That flexibility is valuable. But taxable accounts come with tax drag. Dividends may be taxed, interest may be taxed, capital gains may be taxed when you sell. Frequent trading can create annual tax bills. Even if the investment return is strong, taxes can reduce the compounding rate. This difference becomes enormous over decades. If you invest the same amount in a tax-advantaged account and in a taxable account, the tax-advantaged account may finish far ahead because more money stayed inside the compounding engine each year. That is why taxable accounts usually come after the tax-advantaged options. Not because taxable accounts are bad, they are very useful, but they are not the first place most people should put long-term retirement money if better tax advantage space remains available. Taxable accounts have special strengths. They are excellent for goals before retirement age. If you want to retire early, you may need taxable assets to bridge the period before retirement accounts can be accessed without penalties. If you are saving for a house in 5 or 10 years, a taxable account may make sense depending on risk tolerance and time horizon. If you want to leave assets to heirs, taxable accounts may receive a step-up in basis at death under current law, which can eliminate unrealized capital gains tax for heirs. So taxable accounts are not inferior. They are simply later in the sequence for most people. The order, then, is clear. Build the emergency fund, capture the employer match. Eliminate high-interest debt, maximize the IRA, use the HSA if eligible, maximize the 401k or similar employer plan, then invest through taxable accounts. That is the basic order. But life is not always perfectly linear. There are exceptions, there are personal constraints, there are psychological realities, there are income limits, contribution limits, eligibility rules, debt types, family obligations, and local tax differences. So the order is a framework, not a prison, but frameworks matter because they prevent randomness. Most people do not fail because the perfect strategy was unavailable. They fail because they do not have any strategy. They put money wherever the emotion of the month tells them to put it. One month it is a stock, another month it is crypto, another month it is a savings account, another month it is a side hustle. Meanwhile, the credit card debt grows. The employer match is missed, the IRA is unfunded, the HSA is ignored, and the taxable brokerage account becomes a casino. That is disorder. Disorder is expensive. The right order creates compounding in multiple dimensions. It creates financial compounding, tax compounding, behavioral compounding, and psychological compounding when you have an emergency fund. You make better decisions. When high-interest debt is gone, your cash flow improves. When you capture the employer match, your savings rate rises without more work. When you use tax-advantaged accounts, more of your money stays invested. When your fees are low, your compounding is less diluted. When taxable accounts are used for flexibility, they create optionality. That is how the machine gets stronger. But I want to return to the psychology because that is where most failures happen. People know credit card debt is bad and still carry it. People know employer matching is valuable and still ignore it. People know they should save for emergencies and still do not. Why? Because the right order is boring. It does not give them a story to tell. It does not make them feel brilliant. It does not give them the thrill of finding the next big stock. It does not create an identity. It is not entertaining. But wealth is not entertainment. Wealth is the result of good systems repeated. The boring steps are the steps that create the freedom to take intelligent risk later. If you have no emergency fund, every market downturn feels like a threat. If you have no toxic debt, every dollar you earn has more power. If your retirement accounts are funded, you have a base that compounds quietly. If your tax structure is efficient, the government takes less from the compounding process. If your taxable account is built after the foundation, it becomes a tool instead of a temptation. This is how you reduce fragility, and reducing fragility is one of the most important principles in money. A fragile person needs everything to go right. A resilient person can survive things going wrong. The emergency fund makes you less fragile. Eliminating high-interest debt makes you less fragile. Diversifying across account types makes you less fragile. Tax planning makes you less fragile. Low-cost investing makes you less fragile. Liquidity in taxable accounts makes you less fragile. The right order is not only about maximizing returns, it is about minimizing the chance that life forces you to make a catastrophic decision. That is why I would rather see a person build slowly in the right order than aggressively in the wrong order. Aggressive investing with no foundation is often just delayed failure. Now let us go deeper into the relationship between debt payoff and investing because it is one of the most misunderstood areas. People often ask whether they should invest or pay off debt. The answer depends on the interest rate, tax treatment, risk, liquidity, and psychology. A 22% credit card is simple, pay it off. A 12% personal loan is usually still urgent. An 8% loan may be close to the line depending on expected market returns and personal risk. A 3% fixed mortgage is different. You must think in real after-tax terms. The higher the interest rate on the debt, the more debt payoff behaves like a high guaranteed return. The lower the interest rate, especially if fixed and tied to a productive or appreciating asset, the more room there may be for investing instead. But do not use that logic as an excuse to keep bad debt. People often rationalize. They say they can earn more in the market while paying only minimums on expensive debt. That is usually a mistake because the debt is guaranteed and the market return is not. The same logic applies to employer matching. A match is a rare guaranteed return. If someone offers to give you money for contributing, you take the match before going beyond it elsewhere. But you do not necessarily max the entire 401k before addressing credit card debt. You capture the match, then go back to the high-interest debt. This kind of sequencing is the difference between a thoughtful plan and a generic rule. Generic rules are easy, thoughtful plans require understanding. Now consider the IRA decision. Why prioritize an IRA after the employer match in debt? Because of control. Many employer plans have limited menus. Some are excellent, some are not. If your 401k has low-cost index funds and good options, the difference between IRA and 401k may be smaller. But if the plan is expensive, an IRA gives better control and lower cost. Costs are predictable, returns are not. That means reducing cost is one of the few things you can control. If two investors earn the same market return before fees, but one pays 0.05% and the other pays 1.5%, the difference over decades can be enormous. The fee is not just a fee, it is a reduction in compounding. That is why low-cost investing matters. Now, the traditional versus Roth choice also deserves careful thinking. People like certainty, so they want a universal answer. There is not one. A young person early in a career may benefit greatly from Roth because current taxes are relatively low and future income may be higher. A high earner in peak income years may benefit from traditional contributions because reducing taxable income today may be very valuable. But tax rates can change, future income can change, retirement spending can change, required distributions can change the picture. Social Security taxation can interact with withdrawals. Medicare premiums can be affected by income. State residency can change. This is why tax diversification is sensible. Having some traditional, some Roth, and some taxable money gives you flexibility. It lets you manage taxable income in retirement. It gives you choices in different policy environments. The purpose of planning is not to predict the future perfectly, it is to preserve options. Options are valuable because the world changes. Now, the HSA is a special case. Many people think of it as a medical spending account that is too narrow. If you are eligible and can afford to invest the funds, the HSA can become a retirement healthcare investment account. It is uniquely powerful because it can be tax-deductible going in, tax-free while growing, and tax-free coming out. For medical expenses, healthcare is one of the largest retirement risks. A dedicated pool of tax-free medical money can reduce that risk materially, but do not ignore the health plan trade-off. A high-deductible plan means you may have more out-of-pocket responsibility. If that is wrong for your family, the HSA advantage may not justify the insurance risk. Again, the account is a tool. Tools must fit the job. Once the HSA is funded, returning to the 401k makes sense because the contribution limits are large. For disciplined savers, this is where the accumulation engine becomes powerful. Large annual contributions, tax deferral or Roth treatment, employer payroll automation, and long-term compounding can create serious wealth. Automation helps because it removes emotion. If the money leaves your paycheck before you see it, you adapt your spending to what remains. That is a powerful behavioral hack. The best financial systems are not built on willpower alone. They are built to reduce the need for willpower. Automatic contributions, automatic debt payments, automatic transfers to savings, automatic investment into low-cost funds. These are small mechanisms that produce large outcomes over time. Then taxable accounts provide flexibility. They allow you to invest beyond retirement account limits. They allow early retirement funding. They allow liquidity for medium-term goals. They can be tax efficient if you use broad index funds, minimize turnover, and hold for long-term capital gains treatment. They can also be disastrous if you day trade, chase trends, and create tax bills without building wealth. A taxable account is like a wide open field. You can build something useful there, or you can get lost. The freedom is the advantage and the risk. So the order is not only about returns, it is about containing human behavior. The more flexible the account, the more discipline it requires. That is why it comes later after the foundation is strong. A person with no emergency fund and no debt discipline should not be given an unlimited trading account and told to be wise. They may turn flexibility into self-destruction. A person who has built the foundation can use flexibility intelligently. That is the difference. Now I want to make the opportunity cost clear. Every month you carry high-interest debt, you are paying a penalty. Every month you miss an employer match, you are rejecting free money. Every year you fail to use available tax advantage space, you may lose an opportunity that cannot be recovered. Every year you pay unnecessary fees, you transfer wealth away from yourself. Every year you invest randomly instead of systematically, you add avoidable risk. The cost of doing things out of order is not always visible in 1 month, but over a lifetime it can be enormous. Tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands in some cases. For high earners who consistently optimize the sequence, the difference can be life-changing. This is why I care about order. The order is not exciting, but it is one of the biggest levers ordinary people have. Most people cannot control market returns. They cannot control interest rates. They cannot control tax law. They cannot control recessions. But they can control the order in which they deploy money. That is powerful. Now let me translate the full sequence into a mental model. Your first layer is survival. That is the emergency fund. Your second layer is stopping damage. That is eliminating high-interest debt. Your third layer is capturing guaranteed opportunity. That is the employer match. Your fourth layer is tax-efficient compounding with control. That is the IRA. Your fifth layer is tax-efficient healthcare and retirement resilience. That is the HSA if eligible. Your sixth layer is larger-scale tax-advantaged retirement accumulation. That is the 401k beyond the match. Your seventh layer is flexibility and unlimited accumulation. That is the taxable account. Each layer solves a different problem. Do not ask one layer to do the job of another. A taxable account cannot protect you from a medical emergency if the market is down and you need the money tomorrow. A high-yield savings account cannot build long-term retirement wealth as efficiently as a tax-advantaged investment account. A 401k match cannot help you if you never contribute enough to receive it. An IRA cannot save you if credit card interest is compounding faster than your investments. The layers must work together. That is why sequence matters. Now, some people will say, what if I want to invest while paying off debt because it keeps me motivated? That is a behavioral question. If putting a small amount into investing helps you stay engaged, while most of your extra money goes to debt payoff, that may be acceptable. But do not deceive yourself mathematically. High interest debt usually deserves priority after capturing the match and maintaining your starter emergency fund. Behavior matters, but behavior should not become an excuse for inefficiency. Others will ask, should I keep investing if my emergency fund is not complete? This depends on which emergency fund stage you are in. Getting the first $1,000 is urgent. Getting to 1 month is important. Getting to 3 months can happen alongside other steps once you have stabilized, especially if you are capturing a match and attacking toxic debt. Again, the framework is adaptive. It is not mechanical. A person with dependents, unstable income, or medical risks may need a larger emergency fund earlier. A person with stable income and high interest debt may prioritize debt more aggressively after a starter buffer. Good finance is not rigid. It is principled. The principle is to reduce the biggest risks first and capture the highest guaranteed returns. This is also why the employer match can come before high interest debt. The match is the highest guaranteed return. High interest debt is the highest guaranteed cost. The emergency fund prevents forced errors. Once you see the system, the order becomes logical. The reason most people miss it is that they do not see all parts together. They see investments separately from debt. They see taxes separately from returns. They see emergency savings separately from behavior. They see accounts separately from incentives. But money is one system. Every dollar has a job. Every account has a purpose. Every debt has a cost. Every tax rule changes the outcome. Every behavior pattern affects the plan. If you understand that, you stop asking random questions and start building a coherent machine. That is the real goal. Not to own the most exciting stock, not to brag about returns, not to sound sophisticated. The goal is to build a machine that converts income into assets, assets into compounding, compounding into independence, and independence into freedom. That machine must be built in the right order. If you skip the foundation, the machine breaks. If you build the foundation, the machine becomes stronger each year. There is something psychologically powerful about following the right order. You know what to do next. That reduces confusion. When you have $500 extra, you do not waste time asking whether to buy a stock, pay a card, fund an IRA, or hold cash. You look at the sequence, you find the highest priority unfinished step, you put the dollar there. Clarity creates action. Action creates progress. Progress creates confidence. Confidence reduces the need for emotional investing. This is how ordinary people build serious wealth, not by predicting the market, by creating a repeatable process. And the process works because it aligns with the way money actually compounds. It removes the biggest negative compounding forces first. It captures free money. It uses tax advantages. It lowers costs. It preserves liquidity. It gives flexibility only after discipline has been established. That is a good system. Now, the final warning is about impatience. People want to jump to the end. They want taxable brokerage accounts, individual stocks, options, crypto, private deals, and complex strategies. They think complexity means intelligence. Often complexity is just a way to avoid doing the simple thing that would work. If you have no emergency fund, start there. If you have credit card debt, attack it. If your employer offers a match, capture it. If your IRA is unfunded, fund it. If you have access to an HSA and it fits your health situation, use it. If your 401k has room and you can afford more contributions, increase them. If all of that is done, then build your taxable account. That is not glamorous. It is effective, and effective beats glamorous in finance. Your future self does not need you to be entertained today. Your future self needs you to be disciplined today. The people who follow this order may not look impressive at first. They may not have stories about doubling money overnight. They may not be talking about the newest stock at parties. They may not feel like geniuses during speculative booms. But year after year, their balance sheet becomes stronger. They have cash, they have no toxic debt. They get the employer match. They fund tax-advantaged accounts. They keep costs low. They invest consistently. They use taxable accounts for flexibility. They avoid avoidable mistakes. That is how wealth is usually built quietly, boringly, systematically. Then one day, the boring system produces an exciting result. That is the paradox of money. The exciting behavior often produces bad results. The boring behavior often produces freedom. So do not skip the order. Do not build on quicksand. Do not feed the slot machine while debt is laughing at you. Do not leave free money on the table. Do not pay unnecessary taxes because you wanted flexibility too early. Do not underestimate the HSA. Do not ignore fees. Do not confuse account access with account efficiency. Do not chase returns before you remove the leaks. Every next dollar should have a job. Give it the right job in the right order for long enough and your financial life changes. That is the principle. Order creates strength. Strength creates resilience. Resilience allows compounding. Compounding creates independence, and independence is the real goal.